How's it going, Nick? We're both
Yeah.
coming off of a Star Wars release here, and it's the end of 2019, and it's probably the biggest release of 2019 for me.
Oh, it will
so.
be. I don't think. I mean, there's gonna be like a lot of movies that's gonna be much more better critique, but this is it. This is the big. This is throw everything out there for Disney and Star Wars is it.
Yeah. 2019 is officially over. Star Wars is out, so let's just stop talking about 2019. Let's just move on. No, we're gonna have some thoughts today. So for those of you that are interested, this is going to be a fairly non-spoiler talk review of The Rise of Skywalker. We're going to cover things that are kind of like in the first 20 minutes of the film. Plot points there, things that are introduced, and kind of cover it from that end. If you guys are interested in deep diving in on a spoiler talk, though, I cannot recommend enough Nick's podcast, St. Paul Filmcast. We just did an episode a couple days ago that's going to feature myself, Jay Ness, and Ben Enke talking for ad nauseum about the film and all of its spoileriness. So if you guys are interested in that, check it out. If you haven't seen the film and you're okay with learning the initial plot points of the film, stay with us. And if you really don't want to know any of it, just pause us, put us in your watch later list, go see the movie, come back, and then we'll be here.
But we should really strongly recommend that you watch the movie before listening to us.
Yes, definitely. And I think even after hearing the pluses and minuses across the board, go watch the movie, because it's definitely a film that I think even the people that don't like it are going to tell you to go see it. Even the people that love it are going to tell you to go see it, because it's definitely a movie of a million opinions. So that's what we're going to talk about today on Kyle and Nick on Film. We got the end of the Skywalker saga, so stay tuned with us. Welcome back to Kyle and Nick on Film. Again, we're talking Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker, the end of the 9-film Skywalker saga. Nick, let's, I guess real quick, talking about plot points of the film. It's been about a year has passed in the Star Wars world since The Last Jedi. The Resistance has been fairly broken by what they've gone through in the previous two installments, and it seems like the First Order has just about everything that they need. The film opens up initially with Kylo Ren searching for his next step in claiming all the power that he can get. He's been contacted out by Palpatine. He's going to try and subvert what Palpatine's expectations are and kind of take over the mantle of like head of the Sith. On the side of Rey and her team, they have been tasked with trying to figure out where the once believed dead Emperor Palpatine is. By finding his home world, and there's a series of tasks that they have to go through in order to find out where this location is, and hopefully bring an end to this decades-long war that's been going on between the Jedi and the Sith, and now all the way through to the First Order and the Resistance. So
one of the things we're going to realize J.J. Abrams is a lot of the staples that we see with the J.J. Abrams film. It's a very fast pace. It goes very fast. It's a lot of fast cuts. Definitely a journey. He likes those journey kind of stories of discovery and finding literary devices. So a lot of J.J. Abrams troops. This really divorces from The Last Jedi and really brings back, kind of almost bypasses The Last Jedi a little bit and brings back The Force Awakens. It's going to upset a few people who appreciate Last Jedi, as critics really did appreciate Last Jedi. Star Wars hardcore fans didn't really. But I think we can find solace in this Rise of Skywalker, a kind of fitting closure for all of it, the canon.
Yeah, I think, and we've talked about this before, the whole idea of the franchise not having a plan in place has been this, or not the franchise, this new trilogy's not having a plan in place has kind of been its own downfall in some ways, just because it feels like the first two films cover a lot of characters, cover a lot of things going on, and this final film had to jam a lot in there. For what J.J. Abrams was tasked with, I think he did a pretty solid job. The film has some writing issues and has some editing issues. It's got some just things apparent throughout that feel rushed. And as you said before, it's a lot of movie. I get the feeling that this was like an Irishman length film at one point, and then they just had to start cutting things out, because it definitely feels like it jumps around from plot point to plot point extremely quickly. So much so I had to go back and see the second time because I didn't even know what to say about it after seeing it the first time.
There's definitely a little bit of loops in there, a little bit of gaps with the editing. There's a certain scene of Kylo Ren and Rey fighting in the desert, and it cuts, and it's like nothing's been resolved. But there's a drastic cut to another moving on to the story, and you kind of don't get resolved. So fast editing, a little bit clunky. Sometimes it has silly dialogue, but it's a Star Wars film.
Yeah, and I think like going back to even that sequence, and I won't tell our viewers about what the sequence is specifically, but it takes place on a kind of desert planet, and the fight between these two, it involves members of their other team have been like around the specific area, and they each have something kind of going on at different spots.
Yes.
And I felt like just even like the overall editing made me not sure where these different characters were in relation to each other.
Yeah.
You know, I was like, can they not tell where the other ones are? Can they see what's going on? It's just kind of like overall, you can see the cracks in what had to be accomplished in the film.
Right.
I think you get a writer like Chris Terrio, who I really love the work that he did on Argo. He's also a writer who's been criticized on a lot of the DC writing projects he's worked on for being overly complicated. And I can see the overcomplication in this screenplay. I think he really does like to have a deep, thick mythology kind of twisting and turning story. Yeah. And I can commend him for trying that, but I think simplicity is the key here. There's a lot of stuff, especially in that first hour of the film, that is a lot less simple than it needs to be.
Right. There's a lot of stuff that you find in this film that really doesn't not necessary.
Yeah.
And it gets frustrating, especially for Star Wars fans who like to see this is really the core, and why we're talking about this so much and concentrating this where we can cut 10 minutes out of it and we can really get back to what we appreciate. So a lot of unnecessary stuff that didn't have to be complicated, and that's what he's establishing here.
Because comparing it, even like in so much of the sequel trilogy has been compared to the original trilogy. Yeah. And if you can call this the finale of it, you can call this kind of the Return of the Jedi of this trilogy. Think about the story setup in Return of the Jedi. All the plot is explained in one meeting of all these, rebels. Takes about 5 minutes. You know the entire plot of the film at that point.
You're right, yes.
This one, you really do get lost in trying to overcomplicate the MacGuffin find of the first hour of the film. I think things come together in a very satisfying way at the end, and there's a lot of things that I didn't want them to do that they did and worked pretty well for me. But as I've said before, it's a film with, I think, a great story with a poor execution.
That's what I agree with.
Yeah.
So even though we have problems with the editing, it's not so much the editor, but they have so much content, and it looks like they're trying with a puzzle fit pieces that don't really fit together.
Yeah. And
just put a bow on it, put a Band-Aid on it. It's Star Wars. Let's get it out there.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's jump into a couple of our characters here. How do you feel the storyline went for Rey in this film?
I like what they had to do, and how they resolved it. I like her arc. A little bit of surprise, and we need surprises because I think that's the nucleus of Star Wars. We need to be surprised. We have some certain expectations, and we like to be, whoa, Leia's a sister, whoa, Darth Vader's a father, whoa, Finn is not really, so we expect there has to be some surprises involved.
Yeah, and I think like we haven't had a surpriseless Star Wars film since the original. The original is a very simple plot going through it, but yeah, the moment you have Vader become Luke's father, it's like now everything has to be like twists and turns and surprises.
Yeah.
And I think that's in some way like the way they treat Rey's character here, not what I expected.
No.
And if you had told me how they were going to do it, I would have been disappointed before seeing the film. I think the execution on that is fairly good. I think that it really kind of like brings a theme to the trilogy that hasn't had one really in depth yet. We have now our theme of what her story is all about. Moving along to like Finn, who I've said before is like my favorite character in this new trilogy. I love the idea of the stormtrooper rising up, and really like taking out his own captors. Like this great moment he had where he faces off against Captain Phasma in The Last Jedi. Now we get him past that movement. What do you think about how Finn was treated?
Just a little bit there. Yeah, he's very lovable, isn't he? Very encourageable. He has to be a little bit clunky. He's definitely a little bit of a comedic point to it. Definitely feels that. But without it, it still can be a great story. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, Finn is a great addition. Not necessarily becomes unnecessary, where he's very crucial in The Force Awakens. It's now becoming to a point where it's not really necessary, and that's kind of sad. Mm-hmm. I really expected a lot more. You get a little bit of a journey at the end. I don't get the closure I want with him at the end.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I personally felt like he went in some directions I didn't expect his character to go.
Right.
I still think he's my favorite of the new core trilogy characters for what he does accomplish in the film.
Right.
It does get a little muddled with what he has to accomplish here.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I would argue back that he's not as much of a comedic presence in this film as he was in The Force Awakens.
I think
in The Force Awakens, there's a lot of that, like, does she have a boyfriend kind of joke and stuff like that, humor that I think is brought back. Maybe it was missing a little bit in The Last Jedi, but he's always been kind of like a clunky, silly, goofy character in some ways.
Goofy character, but I think they just treat it with kid gloves. Like there could be some points, but they don't want to have any resolve. I think they want to continue with, but I just think they just didn't treat it very well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a little more. They want to keep that childish aspect of them, and I think we should grow out of that eventually, and kind of you could take control.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's move on to a bit more of a tender subject. I think the treating of Carrie Fisher as Leia.
Yeah.
Now, as we all know, she passed away after the filming of Last Jedi.
Yes.
And so, like, it was right after we got her great cameo like moment in Rogue One. I think was kind of cool. And then there's been the question of how do we treat Princess Leia in this film? Because for those of you who don't know, the initial idea with the trilogy and utilizing the original members was Episode 7 was supposed to be very Han centric, 8 was supposed to be Luke centric. 9 was going to be Leia-centric. So knowing that we weren't able to get that, how do you feel like Leia ended up in the film?
Well, you're dealing with something that you don't have a lot of material to work with.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, there was supposed to be some more added to it, but how they crafted her exhaustion to the point of where she went had to be that way. I don't think you're locked in, you're handcuffed, right?
Yeah.
She's gone. You don't have any more. But there's some additives, a little backstory to her of her and her brother Luke, in the ending. But right, when you're handicapped, there's not much you can do with it.
Yeah, and I think like personally, we know going into the film that they only had about 15 minutes of unused footage with Leia, so she doesn't get to play the big part that we thought she was going to play. We knew that going in though. It was something we were prepped for and ready for, and I think. For me, it was like I was so happy with the moments we got because it was a nice little send off for our princess. You know, the people that we've all grown up with.
Sure.
I personally would have excluded the footage from the film, and had her pass away gracefully between episodes 8 and 9. Could have opened the film up with just mentioning our princess has passed, and I think that would have been like kind of the nod that you need. One thing I actually think like they dealt really well with was how they portray Leia through the eyes of other characters. When other people talk about Leia, and like building some of the backstory that's happened for her between the original trilogy and now, I think was done really well. You can tell when you're watching the Leia scenes that they're writing around her. Like that the other characters are giving the exposition so that she can respond to it with what little they have to deal with. It's very noticeable in the first time we see her with Rey. She has a moment with Snap Wexley, who's played by Greg Grunberg, where he does a lot of the heavy lifting in that scene, and she responds to it. And it's very noticeable for me. At the same time, I was happy with how it was done because I knew that it was a situation that you're out of control. Like there's no right way to do it.
And everybody's going to be critical no matter what you're going to do.
Yes. There's a great YouTuber that I've listened to who literally, since she passed away, said recast her. He said put someone else in the role. He even suggested like Meryl Streep, who was a friend to Carrie Fisher. Like what a good send off that would have been for her character, and that would have maybe been the way that Carrie Fisher wanted it. I think it would have taken me out of the film too much because just no one can be her. Yeah. You know, so I personally was good with either the used footage or don't put her in the movie and just have the general thing have passed. Like
there's some other options you could have done. You could have had her gone in the first couple minutes and have her
open it with maybe a funeral or like kind of like do something different with her right at the beginning of the film, so that you don't feel like you have to shoehorn in plot points. Again, though, I think like as a Star Wars fan, it was great to see her in the film. It was great to have the moments with few we could have with her.
Yep.
So I don't fault them for that because it really is a unwinnable situation.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and so back to I guess unwinnable situations. The inclusion of Palpatine in this film. Yeah. We know that depending on who you ask, he either was meant to be in the movie, he either wasn't meant to be in the movie, but he's very prominent in the marketing for the film.
And I think you and I agree that this is something that was inserted later, that this whole was not the intention building up, that this was basically glued in or injected in to provide some really, where are we going with this? When they didn't know. And this is a great avenue. They provide a great logic to it, which I'm a little bit surprised.
Yeah, they give great meaning to it, and it's also something there are parts of it I wanted explained further. There are parts of it that I felt were explained enough. I think if you know the character of Palpatine, if you know his arc from the beginning, from episode 1 until now, you know how he's back. You know why he's back, even if they don't dive into it as much as I would have liked. Really, it's the scenes with him that I felt were the strongest finale scenes for the film. Yeah. They're the ones that really feel like we're heading towards our conclusion. I wanted more time with those sequences. Because I think that he really, he is our ultimate villain. He really is. He is what the Skywalker saga seemingly has been fighting the entire time.
And then the nice contrast, they always portray Palpatine as very looking physically and talking, looking weak, but underneath he's very, very diabolical, very strong.
Yeah, he's a character who very much is the brains over brawn, and he has much power, but he's always very physically weak. And when we see him in the film, the way he's presented,
looks like there's some
very
dependence.
Cool. Yeah. It's a very kind of a frightening visage. It's probably the most disturbing view of Palpatine we've had in this whole series. I like the way it's done. I would have liked to have dealt with more of how he was integral to the other films, via either flashback or have some more connective tissue, because we do connect it, but without having rewatched the previous 2 sequel trilogy films, I don't know how that is going to feel on a second, on a binge of the franchise again. Will it work as well? It definitely was added in kind of reaction to where the plot was going.
Yeah.
But I think it worked most of all. And it's something I mentioned on the podcast with our spoiler talk, and I'll say it again right now. I think the film's story is great. It's just how everything
spliced
works
together. It looks very spliced when you watch this. Very cut up. Doesn't really flow very well.
Yeah, it's definitely and I think I was curious coming out of it because I was I don't know if hardcore fans will like this more or if casual fans will like this more. And I think it's going to be more casual fans.
I think so.
I think the film is going to feel very complete and a very complete ending to where they're going from a casual fan perspective. I was blessed in that I knew I wasn't going to get the film I expected. So I went into it just saying, I have nothing I think needs to happen in the film. Just give me my movie. Yeah. And in that way, I was still really pleasantly surprised. And you're going to hear a lot from me. You guys, if you follow me on Twitter, you've seen some of my problems with the film. If you listen to our spoiler chat, you're going to see some of those problems as well. I still really like the movie. I was still very entertained. Number one for me is always entertainment. And if you can't have that in a Star Wars film, that's a problem for me.
So I think it fits all the things that you need in a Star Wars. You need your desert scene. Mm-hmm. You need your space battle. You need your lightsaber battle. You need a few surprises, a few new things. With J.J. Abrams, you're going to get some stuff that he always puts in there.
Yep. The man loves his fan service.
And loves his fan service. So you get what you always expect in a Star Wars movie, and it's just sometimes we Kyle and I agree, the execution just doesn't really feel all that great, and
it's a messy movie.
It's very messy. It's a hot mess, but it's a very enjoyable hot mess.
Yeah. It's rare for me. My wife has never been a giant Star Wars fan. She's always been the casual fan. She goes with me to the opening because I'm going and I bought her a ticket. It's never been a thing where she needs to be there opening night with me, but she does it. That's love right there. Yeah. But she also didn't grow up on the original films. She came out of this one saying, if you want to go back, I will go back with you, which is great because I don't have to sit alone in the theater for 4 more times. For me, as you mentioned, we get our classic tropes of a Star Wars film.
Yeah.
Lightsaber battles. We didn't get a lot of lightsaber battles in episode 7 or 8. No. We get our finale battle in 7. We get our really the battle in 8 is a fake out in some ways because Luke's not even there battling.
No, so, in the one is the
and the throne
Ray
is fighting other people, not fighting other lightsabered people. So we didn't really get a lot in 8 either. So it's great to see in episode 9 we get a lot of lightsaber action. If you felt the films before were missing it, I think this is one of those criticisms JJ heard and he used, We get a lot of action with the sabers.
Yeah.
And I think the choreography was pretty solid on those. They have some really great set pieces with the lightsaber fights.
Yeah. There is a great scene of, with Kylo Ren and Rey fighting where you see exhaustion from both of them.
Yeah.
And it's a great feeling of that because you get a sense that this scope is massive and you get a sense of we're still doing this.
Mm-hmm.
There's still this exhaustion, and I love that part of it's a small part of the movie, but I really like that you put that in there.
Yeah, and
it gives a sense of genuineness.
Yeah, and I think that's something where too, like, it's the end of this battle. I would be tired too. It's the end of this 9-film story. Yeah. It's exhausting fighting the Emperor. Yes. Like, that man he's always been there. So, thinking about some of the things that coming off of Last Jedi with its mixed reaction coming into a film like this, there was a lot of stuff that needed to be accomplished. I'm a Last Jedi fan. Like, it is my third favorite Star Wars film of all of them. I love this movie unabashedly. And I was actually surprised when I had heard, like, Last Jedi fans are not going to like this. There are things that are changed from Last Jedi. Not canonically, like, broken, but, like, just, certain point of view changes that are made. And I was surprised that they didn't really bother me that much.
It didn't bother me very much either. I really do appreciate Last Jedi. Mm-hmm. I know what they're going with it, and I know that they're going to they were challenging fans rather than just appeasing them.
Yeah.
And I like that a point, and I think Rian Johnson stated that many times before, that he wanted to challenge Star Wars fans of what a movie is. And
when he had this great quote too where he said, if Star Wars is going to survive, it needs to change.
It does.
They do need to change things, and I think that's what his film did so well. There are a lot of things that are taken from The Last Jedi and progressed in this film, just as much as there are things that are maybe, I don't want to say regressed, but things that are like challenged upon themselves.
Right. Yeah.
That I think, like, I was surprised at how much it actually honored the film, because I had heard how many ways it didn't honor the film. And it's not like they flat out,
so many times like this is a stray from Last Jedi, and I didn't feel that.
Yeah, I don't think Abrams was putting up a middle finger. And a lot of the people I've heard criticisms to, I think those are unwarranted. I really don't think he was doing anything against Rian Johnson's film. He just was tasked with a very difficult task of completing the story. So I was really impressed by that. And I think the second time I watched it, those little, like, moments where I was, like, unsure about how I felt were very different for me. Like, I really, like, softened on some of them. So, yeah, very much so.
Overall, I get a sense of exhaustion from every character in this.
It's been a hard battle.
It's a hard battle, and it wears and tears, and it shows on every character, and it's kind of intentional. Even Adam Driver, Kylo Ren, has an exhaustion point of it, and a sense of just unease.
Yeah.
Where we're going, and I do like the ending. Yeah. I really do like the ending.
Yeah, for me, I'm still recommending the film to a lot of people. I'm still saying if you're a fan of Star Wars, if you're a fan of these kinds of films, I think you'll get a lot of stuff to like out of the film. It's definitely a messy film. There was talk about this one, before it came out. Everyone's like, well, it's the last film. Maybe it's going to be like that Return of the King Best Picture winner kind of a film. It's not that. It's not. Temper your expectations with the idea that it's a troublesome film in some ways. But I think the enjoyment value, the excitement value was still strong enough that I wanted to go back the next morning and see it again. It's a film that I think we're going to be talking about for years. Maybe longer than we talked about Last Jedi. We're going to be talking about Rise of Skywalker and some of the things that were done, theorizing about some of the things that were left a little more elusive.
There is a little bit of,
Never before have I wanted to dive into
there are some carrots dangling at the end that we're like, what?
Yeah. So I was, I had a lot of fun with it, and I think the only way to truly know how this film is successful or not is
longevity.
See, like, when I go back and watch my Star Wars films, how will it feel coming off of the others? Yeah. Knowing where it's headed, and I think that's kind of that's going to be how we figure out where the film is.
Yeah.
And I think this one is going to look a little bit brighter in the future.
Yeah. Especially if you see the ending, what we're talking about, right?
Definitely. So, that's it for our episode, guys. We talked about Star Wars, but we want to hear from you guys.
Definitely.
Obviously,
love to.
If you've seen the film, please comment below. If you guys are able to, join our Patreon too. We've got a Patreon up right now with plenty of different tiers. You guys can help influence some of the different film topics we talk about on Kyle and Nick on Film. You can be a part of the interactive experience. You can support local independent content creators.
give us your input and opinions.
Yeah, and if you can't join the Patreon, best way you can support the channel, like, comment, subscribe, share the video on your social media, let people know about it too. We want to hear your thoughts on it though, because this is a film that I am going to look forward to talking about this movie until I finally see what
I think we're
coming
gonna
down the
get,
pipeline.
it's one of those films you're going to get a whole spectrum. It's not just a narrow. You're going to get a whole spectrum of opinions.
So definitely leave yours, and just remember, it's Star Wars. It's fun. Be civil. Be nice to each other. If you didn't like the movie, that's fine. If you love the movie, that's fine. Enjoy the fact though that we've gotten to take this really great ride. This ride that's been most of my life. Has been a part of it. So
it's been around since I've been alive.
Yeah. So very much so. I enjoyed the film. Nick, you enjoyed the film?
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, definitely did.
Great. So yeah, Nick, where can we find you guys outside of Kyle and Nick on Film?
You can find me hosting St. Paul Filmcast. Our new season will start up in February. St. Paul Filmcast is on iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts.
All right. And guys, you can find my reviews on goatfilmreviews.com. Go ahead and check it out. We have in January starting up the Oscar Death Race, where I try to watch every single Oscar-nominated film before the awards. We'll see how that plays out.
Still alive.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm still alive, then I can still keep going. That's it for us, guys. Take a look at those different sources and let us know what you thought of the film. Great to have you, and hey, may the Force be with you.
May the Force be with you.
May the Force be
and
with
you.
you.